Welcome to all the members in our archive with our special guest Tom Campbell, and we were talking about something off the air. I got to hear half of it because, of course, I had put my microphone down. So, Tom.
So I just asked Tom during the break here about some personal problems that I've been having with my own out-of-body projections, and I asked him about the binaural beats, so I'll just ask this again, Tom. I've been having problems getting back out, and I feel like I can still get to the right spot within myself, but popping myself out of the body. I kind of used to use a form where I kind of crawled out. I used the visualization of crawling out of my body, and I seem to have hit a block there.
Okay, a lot of people do that. First, you have to get to a good theta state, good meditation state. That's like step one. Okay, and you seem to be doing that. I call that a point consciousness state, where you just exist in the void as a point of consciousness. In other words, the material world, the physical world's kind of drifted away. Now that doesn't mean that you can't hear it if a motorcycle drives by or something. It just means that you're not attached to it anymore. It's just there. It's irrelevant to you. You are point consciousness. Now that's step one. The second step, this getting out of body thing, is problematical because of the way we define the whole concept. We call it out of body. People think they need to get out of their bodies. You are consciousness. Consciousness does not live in a little house in your body. The body is just virtual. Your brain is just virtual. This is just data. Your body and your brain are no different than the body and brain of a Sims character, or the body and brain of your, night elf in the World of Warcraft. It's just data. And your consciousness doesn't live inside that body any more than it does for those World of Warcraft characters. What the intelligence, the awareness of those characters is in the server. Okay, now the server in those games kind of is an analog to the larger consciousness system. The larger consciousness system is the computer. Okay, so that's the server. You are consciousness. All you have to do is focus your awareness within consciousness. Use your intent, and that's it. There's no body to get out of. So what we have is two big mistakes. One, people thinking that they have to somehow crawl out, roll out, do something to get away from their body, when in fact the body has nothing to do with it whatsoever. That's a problem. Secondly, we have people trying to duplicate other people's experience. You have to have your own experience. So Bob Monroe wrote in his books that he rolled out a body. He'd just kind of roll out, and rolling out was a tool for him. We talked about tool with that headache pill that you take. It's just a tool, or the light beams that people heal with. They're just tools. Rolling out was Bob's tool, and it worked for him. And now there's 100,000 people lying in bed at night, trying to roll out. They're trying to duplicate Bob Monroe's experience. And somebody else will write in the book, well, I lift my arm up, my non-physical arm, and I see it kind of like a ghostly arm up there, and my physical arm's still laying down on the bed, and that's my cue. And I go out, and you have all these people, lying in bed with their arms going up in the air, because they're trying to duplicate that experience. And you can't, it's not efficient to try to use somebody else's tools. Tools are personal. Tools need to resonate with you, because what a tool is something that helps you focus your intent. That's all you need to do. Go to a point consciousness state, intend for where it is you want to be, and there you are. You basically are just shifting the data stream. You shift to a different data stream. People go out of body and they want to go someplace, they have to fly, right? Well, that's because they have this belief that you can't get somewhere unless you move. Well, that's not the way consciousness works. You just teleport. And it's not that you're teleporting a body or teleporting a thing. You're just attaching to a different data stream. That means you're aware of this reality frame, and then you attach to a different one. You're aware in that reality frame, and it's just as easy as that. And once you learn that it doesn't have to be, some people get into this fog thing where they say, well, okay, I'm in a meditation state and I'm going to go out of body. I got to get foggier and foggier and deeper to where I just about lose consciousness, and then I'll be there. Well, most of them go to sleep because they get so foggy that they lose it.
Here.
You don't need fog. You can switch from one data stream to the other in a bright, shiny, clear mind. There's no need to go through the fog to get there. See, the fog's just another tool that we think we have to fog out first. All you have to do is shift your consciousness, and once you learn that and practice it, you can be out of body in another reality frame in a half a second or less, and do whatever you need to do and come back. You can go and come in the middle of a conversation. Oftentimes when people come to me and they say, oh, I get this problem, the doctor found this lump, and they're telling me about it. Why they're telling me about it, I'm already out, looking at their body, doing the healing, that kind of stuff. You don't need to go lie down and meditate even. You just switch your focus. And it sounds easy, and it really is easy. The hard thing is to get over the beliefs. You see, it's the beliefs. We started the show with that, with belief. It's the belief that holds you back. You believe you have to get out of your body. So here you are, and the central thing in this whole thing is your body, and you're trapped inside, and you need to get out. And how are you going to do that? Well, you have to do something, because we don't believe that anything can happen if you don't do something. So you have to crawl, you have to roll, you have to, lift your arm, you have to blast out, you have to do something. And all of these things is tools to help you focus your consciousness, because you're not in your body to begin with. You're just consciousness getting a data stream.
So one thing about the big toe that really attracted me was that I used the big toe as a tool, and I used my own big toe, my physical big toe, as my focus for being able to actually learn a meditation practice for myself. I tried everybody else's methods, the focus on the breathing, the picture, the still pond and all that stuff. And I really did not get into a good deep meditation state until I just focused on my big toe.
Right.
So,
Get your own tools. Yeah.
right,
Get your own tools. They work better because they resonate with you.
right.
It's a metaphor that you can work with, and you try to work with somebody else's metaphor, and it's very inefficient. So that's the the chakras. It's another metaphor. There are no chakras. The chakras are a metaphor for arranging the data that people got. People go out, they get this larger perspective, they bring back data, and now they have to put it into symbols and metaphors to talk about it or think about it. So there's all sorts of ways you can slice and dice information to create a system by then you can use to talk about it, and the chakras are just one of those ways. So, why do the Hindus see chakras and the Zen Buddhists don't have any chakras? Most of the shaman don't have any chakras. Does that mean that the Hindus really have the market cornered on chakras, and that they're right and everybody else is wrong, or that they're wrong and other people are right? No, it just means that it's their tool set. And if you can use their tool set, then fine, use their tool set. That will help you focus your intent in a way that's productive for you. If some other tool set works better for you, then use some other tool set. But in the end, it's usually better if you create your own tools, like you did with your physical big toe.
There you go.
That works better. Same with your healing, same with your out of body, all those things. So no, you don't have to actually get out of your body because you're not really in your body. You're already out of body. All you have to do is become aware in whatever data stream you want, and you can get that just by focusing your intent. But it's so easy that people say, oh, well, I haven't done anything yet. I feel just like I did before. I didn't even go through the fog. Well, that's because they believe that you have to go through fog first. You see, they believe that you have to come out of a body and turn around and look and see your body there. And you can do that. You can go through fog, and you can go out and get data from the database that is basically the inside of your room and look back and see your body. But that's just a belief. That's why you're extracting that data from the database. None of it's necessary. You can do it as clear-headed as anything, and it works just as well.
Yeah, with people who like Qigong masters, for example, they'll stand on a bunch of eggs and none of the eggs will break. What are they doing to the information there? Or they'll stand on a piece of paper and it won't break.
They're modifying the probabilities in that case. Usually it's a very high probability that if you step on an egg, it'll break. And if you can modify that probability down to where it's very, very small, then you can step on that egg and it doesn't break. This reality frame is a probabilistic statistical reality frame. And depending on the amount of oomph and power you can put into that intent and how much you've practiced at these things, you can do stuff that seems magical. All you're doing is modifying the probabilities of something happening. I don't know, is that
If you have the faith of a mustard seed and tell that mountain to jump into the sea, it will happen. Right?
Well, it's not just faith, and it's not belief.
But that's
we're not Dorothy, and if we click our little red slippers, we'll go back to Kansas. It's not just a matter of faith.
I've been trying.
It's a matter of focusing your intent to the point that you carry enough energy, enough. You can modify the probabilities enough that you can do those things.
This is making sense.
All right. With in your own experience, what are and I know it's your own personal experience, and by you even telling us, you're adding in your own
Right.
ideas to it. But unfortunately, this is not the telepathic show, not yet. But so what are some of the experiences that you've had in this reality, as far as maybe with other beings that are interacting with you?
In this, you're saying what experiences do I have in a physical reality that
Yes.
That are related to interactions with other beings?
Right.
Okay. Probably the best
Non-human.
way. Yeah, non-human. Okay, you're leading me toward some
or
sort of
non-Earth.
UFO thing, are you?
Yes.
She pushing me toward a flying saucer.
Oh, jeez.
Uh,
Well, not
th-
necessarily flying saucer,
right, I
but
know.
yeah.
That's just a
So
flying saucer is just a
let,
metaphor.
let me rephrase the question for Ramon. Okay. No, knowing that you have done quite a bit of out of body, or explored the different reality sets that are out there, have you been visited here by others that you have met, or have you that you've drawn interest from other reality sets?
Sure, lots
And
of
been
lots of other
been
things
vis
from other reality sets, but you're talking now about something that is in our from within our own physical universe, right?
have you had anything that any beings from any other reality set been able to focus their intent or manifest themselves into our reality set in a physical manner?
Or even
Uh,
this reality set.
yeah, that happens. Just like you can do that there. I can go to a different reality frame and I can manifest a physical body in that other reality frame. Though that's not too hard to do. You just insert yourself into their data stream, and then you become part of their VR, and they see you as a physical body.
Right.
That's not a difficult thing to do, and it's not difficult for others to do. Sure, that's a yeah, that's just is not all that uncommon that that sort of
Yeah.
thing happens. But you have to be careful. Generally, there are rules and there are protocols that you have to engage in, and those you have to not disturb what's going on there. See, we have our VR has a purpose. It's a schoolhouse, right? It's a learning lab.
Right.
And we can't have things that disrupt the schoolhouse, right? If you're having a lesson and you're teaching all the children and somebody, runs through with, on fire, that disrupts everything. So we don't let that sort of thing happen. And if you do those kinds of things that are distracting and upsetting of the purpose of the virtual reality that we're in, then mostly you're not allowed. You get shut down, and they tell you to not do that anymore, and they just can take away your ability to do it. They being the larger consciousness system. That's the they, because that's what's basically it's computing all of this. That's the computer that's in charge. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are rules about what you can do when you do that. You just can't come in and run roughshod and create a big hullabaloo and freak everybody out and then decide to go home. You're interfering with the workings of that particular VR, and that's the same. When I go and manifest bodies in other reality frames, I'm very careful to keep a very low profile. I'm very careful not to create any inconsistencies. Very careful not to leave anything or bring anything back, those kinds of things. You have to be careful. You have to have responsibility, and if you don't, then you're not playing nice with the system, and that usually will get you in trouble. Now, you can force the system. You can do things anyway, because this is a system with free will. But if you stick your finger in the eye of the system enough, you will probably regret it downstream later on. So generally, it's better to play nice.
Is there any form of hierarchical system or setup to the reality structures?
Yeah, there is some. It's pretty sparse, but if you have a complex organism, a complex system that's populated by lots of beings with free will, you have to have a few rules, protocols, if you will.
Right.
Think of this as like a lab experiment. Here we have all these subsets of consciousness, and they're all interacting with each other, and the purpose there is to lower their entropy, to grow up. So in order to keep that purpose true, in order to keep it as a good learning place, you have to have some rules. And like one of them we just discussed, you can't have things from outside of this VR crashing here and creating problems so that it doesn't work very well as a learning lab anymore. So that's, we need consistency, and we need to focus on what we're doing. We get our feedback, and if that's constantly being interrupted and disturbed, then the students aren't going to learn much.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But yes, there's some rules, and wherever you have rules, you have entities that will break rules. And where you have rules, then you all have to have some, I hate to use the word policing, but you have to have an adult that's in charge, right, of the schoolroom.
Right.
You can't just have a schoolroom full of kindergarten kids and no adult that's making sure that, that Harry isn't jerking Susie's hair, and dipping her hair in the inkwell or whatever. You have to have somebody who kind of keeps the rules and is in charge, and we have that. We have a little bit of a hierarchy. It's not deep. It's not like it is here in this reality frame where you have nation states and then you have the 10 levels of bureaucrats that are underneath that. We don't. It's not that deep, but there are some rules and there is a little bit of hierarchy to help run things. So the idea is, though, that the hierarchy is not supposed to interfere. We're supposed to be down here learning, and again, we don't want the good guys or the bad guys to interfere. Everybody just needs to mainly butt out and let us do what it is we do so that we can learn from it. So there's not a lot of interference. There is a fair amount of nudging where the larger conscious system will give us a little nudge one way or another because our evolution is its evolution. Mm-hmm. Our growth is its growth because it's us. We're just pieces of that. So there's that. That usually comes out in the form of what we call synchronicity, where you get these little nudges and little bumps, just give you some information that'll open up your mind, that will start you down a path, give you the right thing at the right time, just as you need it for growth. And that synchronicity is the system nudging you, but it's not, going to do something that's going to disturb the experiment.
Right. So do you think with the with so many UFO sightings in the last 70 years, do you think that those sightings or those interactions are just to help us expand our consciousness?
I suspect that most of those, now I don't know, you see, I'm not a ufologist, so I don't know where all the data is and credibility of data and that sort of thing, but I would guess that a lot of those visitations actually are taking place not in this physical reality, though they seem like it. They're taking place within consciousness. Now remember, this physical reality is just data, right? This is just data, and in that data stream, you can get some extra data, like I say, inserted into that data stream, which then puts another being there. And as far as you're concerned, that being's right here in this reality because it's just part of your data stream now. And you, of course, believe that data stream is a physical reality that you live in. So it seems like that thing's right there with you in the physical reality that you live in. But it's consciousness. You are interacting with beings and information, and you interpret them as whatever, the little green man standing at the foot of your bed, that's a interpretation of something that's going on. And I would say most of the time that's real. This idea that everybody that sees something strange must be nuts, is a very arrogant kind of idea. People see things that are strange and they're not nuts and they're not making it up, but they are interpreting it in a way that suits them, in a way that is part of their own experience. So I would think that if you are a big ufologist, you're a big believer that the UFOs are around, whatever, as you see these beings, you would have a higher probability of interpreting those as, from a UFO, there's some sort of interstellar, being here. That would be a more common interpretation. If you are very religious and you have those things, they're probably angels that talk to you. You see, if you have a different, if you're Hindu or Buddhist, you may see them as the ancient sages. So I believe we get more and more of it because the more that it becomes part of people's experience set, then the more likely they are to interpret what they get in those terms. Now that doesn't mean that these aren't individuals, that they're not real, and that they aren't there. They are there in your data stream, which is as much as anything else is. this whole physical reality is just there in your data stream. So, the answer, I guess, is sort of yes and no. I believe that a lot of the I don't know, I won't call them sightings, but things that people see in beings they talk to and so on, that they are indeed real things. Now, whether they are physically here or they just appear to be physically here, when I say that, what's the difference between appearing or being here? There's very little difference, actually, other than what the other people around say. So if you have, 60 Minutes with their cameras, right? And the cameras are rolling and the spaceship lands and the little green men with the pointy ears come out and they all come out and say, hello, take me to your leader or something. And it all gets on film and then gets broadcast. See, that doesn't happen because that's one of those invasive things that creates a ruckus. So what happens is it happens to one person or maybe two or three or for a small group or something. And there's always plausible deniability.
Right.
That is required by a thing that I call the psi uncertainty principle. Almost anything can happen as long as there's plausible deniability. In other words, you don't run roughshod through the VR so that you freak everybody out and set the whole classroom
right.
Into kind of frantic motion that they stop learning, stop growing because now they've got this whole new thing to deal with. So that's the way that works. All these things you notice have plausible deniability. It's a couple of people someplace, or you get a photograph that you really can't tell whether that was done in Photoshop or not. And as long as there's some uncertainty around the event, then basically anything can happen. And then you interpret it however it suits you. Whether it's a UFO or whether it's an angel or whether it's the sages or whether it's, Mr. Rogers, come back. It just depends on you and what's in your experience base.
Yeah, and I kind of see all these different things that people experience as it's time for them to, or they're ready for something that opens their mind to different possibilities than besides the third dimensional reality we were all born and bred with,
Exactly. And why would that happen? Well, the system's basically giving them a little kick in the pants saying, hey, reality's bigger than you think it is. It's not just this physical thing, because that will maybe start them off on a path that will lead them to some productive metaphysics or ideas about what is important and what's going on here and what should I be doing. And if you can get people thinking about that, then they're going to make more progress. So the system does that a lot. It has these things happen to people. I had a friend that I corresponded with a while. He was an engineer. He is an engineer, and he thought all of this stuff about not only the UFOs, but the mental healing and the paranormal, all that was a lot of hokey baloney, like a lot of engineers feel. And then one night, while he was sleeping, he had this image of an airplane. And on this airplane, he saw lots of people, and he was an engineer that knew about airplanes, so he knew there was a particular make and a particular model. And he saw maybe 50, 60 people on this medium-sized airplane, and they were all in black and white except one little girl who was in color. And he saw them just like he was there. He could have told you the clothes they were wearing, whether they had a hat on or not. I mean, he saw it in just as much detail as if he were standing there. It was very real. And a couple of days later, there was an airplane crash. That particular kind of plane, that model, it was full of people, and one little girl survived. And he then looked at all the data he could get to find out what kind of people were on there and how many and so on, and it matched his vision precisely. So at that point, his whole world, his whole worldview went up in smoke, right? He suddenly realized, how could I have gotten that data like 2 days ahead of it? People hadn't even gotten up to get on that plane yet, you see? How could I have gotten that data and have that accurate, that I saw that the one little girl in color and then one little girl survives? So that kind of blew his mind. And after that, he started searching for answers, and the thing he was really wound up with is, what about free will? For him, that kind of punched free will right out of his picture, because, he was doing this a couple of days ahead of time.
Right.
So he was very very committed then to try to figure out what was going on. And that happens. He got that experience not because it was important for him to see those people in particular, but just that it was important for him to realize that reality was different than what he thought, so that it got him going on a learning path that otherwise he would never have gone on. So when these things happen, the mistake that people make, if they see maybe a UFO, or maybe they see this airplane like this guy did, the mistake they make is thinking as, well, this is here, and everybody who's standing here with me today would see that. You see? Not necessarily. This is for them. This is an experience. That's just what you said. This is an experience for them because they're ready to dig a little deeper into the nature of reality and what their purpose of their life is. And these are things that they get to help them do that. Whether it be whether it be somebody from another planet, a UFO, or whether it's like this guy's plane and the passengers he saw, or whether it's a precognitive dream. You get a precognitive dream and you say, oh, I saw such and such, and then a week later it all happens just exactly the way you saw it. That's just a kick in the pants that tells you that, wake up, there's something more to it than just this physical reality. You need to be finding out what that is, and it helps people grow up. So yeah, I think that's what's going on, and it's more personal than it seems. We think that it's, well, anybody was here. If 60 Minutes was here and had their cameras going, they'd all see it. But if 60 Minutes was there with his cameras going, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
So it's kind of like the metaphor you use with the floating rocks in the room. That you can do that, but as soon as 60 Minutes come in, you can't really.
You can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
No, that's I remember I can't remember who it was, but one of these guys who's very good at probing the future probable database was talking about winning lotteries, and he said that 3 or 4 times in a row, and he had written down the winning lottery number, put it in a safe, seal it in an envelope, put it in a safe, and then when they finally did the lottery, excuse me, I got bells ringing and sirens going off here. Okay, when they finally did it, he was right. He got the right number, and he did it again, and he got the right number, and he did this enough times that he was tempted to just buy a number, or buy the number that he wanted, and as soon as he did that, he got the wrong number.
Yeah.
So as long as he was doing it and just putting it in the safe for an experiment for him, no problem. I mean, other people knew about it and whatever, but once he got out and spent money and wanted to win a bunch of money, it didn't work anymore. He got the wrong number. I have another friend that he tried that with lottery. He thought about it, he meditated on it, he got this number, and so he went to the lottery and he bought that number, and the winning number came out. It was his number with every digit shifted up by 1.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Every digit shifted up by 1. So he had this long number, and if he had like a 1, 2, 3, then it was a 2, 3, 4. Every digit was one number off through the whole number from one end to the other.
Oh, no.
And,
It sounds like somebody was playing a joke on him.
yeah, well, somebody was trying to wake him up. Somebody said, "Hey, there's more to life than rocks and trees and physical things."
That's funny you say that, because I used to always discuss my dreams with my mother, and then I kind of stopped because it all became about the winning numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So every single dream meant, okay, if you have a dream with this or that, it's this number. If I have a dream with you, Tom, it's your birthday, so I should play it. So I stopped discussing my dreams with my mother.
yeah, that's better just to see what is that dream. A lot of our dreams are lessons, just like the things we get here. They're opportunities for us to make the right decisions and express love instead of fear. So we work all day and we work all night. In our dreams at night, we do things that we couldn't do here. We have experiences and situations that would be hard to manage here. So we can still have those things and still learn from them while we're dreaming. So the best thing to do is look back at those dreams and not worry about the details, but again, reading between the lines,
Right.
what's this all about? Is it about fear? Most of the time it is, but not always.
Yeah. So what's this accessing, looking at the probable future,
Hmm.
and, I've heard about people, going to and accessing past lives and traveling to future and past events.
Hmm.
So when they travel to the future, are they're just seeing a probable future then?
Yeah. It's just a probable future. It's not the future. The future is not a done deal. It's just there in probability. And if you want to make your query to that database such that you travel along the lines of maximum probability, because everything is there. Everything can possibly happen in a probability that it will. So if you say, well, I just want to go from delta t to delta t along a line of what's most likely, then you'll kind of see what's most likely to happen. But things change. Just like you can use your intent to change those probabilities, everybody else can change those probabilities too with their intent. So it's not a given that what you see there is what you're going to get eventually.
So the closer the day, for example, if I'm looking at 50 years from now compared to tomorrow, the higher the probability that what I see is going to happen, it would be.
Yeah, the closer in you
tomorrow.
are, the more likely that is to be the way it happens. Exactly. If you go out 50 years, that's difficult because a whole lot of things can happen that would change that.
Right.
So now there are some things that go out a long time that still do happen, but it's not just because that probability was tall for some reason and it just stays that way. Most of those things, I think, get nudged. They're things that need to happen for sort of part of the synchronicity thing again.
Right. Part of the lesson
I was
plan.
told when I was 14, I was told that I would meet my present wife when I was 35, and whatever. Well, from 14 to 35 is a long time, and sure enough, it worked exactly the way it was told. Everything that they had said was right on the money. The timing, the number of children, and just the whole thing. So how could that happen? That far ahead. How is that possible? Well, it's because there was a lot of nudging going on. You get this idea, you get this intuition that, well, I should go live over here and I should do this and I should pursue that, and they're getting the same sort of thing, so you happen to end up in the same place at the same time. Well, that's not just because that the system is so marvelous that it can predict out a couple of decades ahead. It's that the system, if it has some plans, it can see that those things, kind of come together. Now, you still have free will. That doesn't mean that you're being manipulated. It just means you're being nudged. You can always say, no, I don't want to do that. And you don't have to. You're not required, but you can be guided or nudged along. And particularly if you're in touch with your intuition, you learn after a while that you pay attention to it, because when you don't, you get the pie in the face, right? And when you do, everything works out really well. So people who are in touch are easy to nudge.
Right. So what about looking at the past? Are you just basically looking at like the memory on your computer?
Yes, you're looking into a database. But remember, this is the database that was in the future. Then as time goes on, that future probably goes into the present. Whatever it is that happens, and then on the other side of that, the next delta t, whatever was in the present, then you get past. But you have this past database that is everything that possibly could have happened and didn't, and everything that did happen. So it's all one database, but our history thread runs through it, which is all the things that actually did happen. But still, you have all the things that could have happened but didn't, and all the probabilities, just like you had in the future. It's the same data. It's just moved down the timeline through the present into the past. So you can go visit that, and when you visit that, it's just like being there. And matter of fact, if you don't actually do some research there, you would think that you were just there, and all of that still lives and is still going on, just like it was when it was in the present. That's not the case. It's just a historical database. but you have all of the probabilities, a probability model of all the characters. So you and I are in that history database of whatever we were doing, a decade ago. We're there. Every thought we have, every feeling, we are completely specified, if you will. The one thing we don't have is free will, because it's just a database. Those characters are no longer interacting with free will. It's just database, and you're just going through that database and seeing, well, if I did this, if I pushed this button, then how would that affect the probabilities? So it's just like being there. It's like you're in a movie where you're the character in the movie, and you can interact with people, you can change things, and you can see what happens. They'll interact with you. And I figured out eventually that it was just a database when I did a whole series of experiments to go there and do the same, start at the same place each time with the same exact stimulus. In other words, ask the same question in exactly the same way. And I found out that I would always get exactly the same answers, which would trigger exactly the same thing in exactly the same way. And only a computer can be that precise. People with free will make a different decision, today than they would have made yesterday, because they're changing all the time. They're growing. Things are happening. Their experience base keeps changing. And this was unchangeable. As long as you queried it precisely the same, you always got precisely the same output out of it. And then when I go, aha, this is not just, the past isn't really alive here functioning just like it always did. It's just database. It's just history, but it's a kind of history that's just awesome in the amount of detail that it has in it. So the only place that free will is playing is in the present. Free will is in the present. So we have models of all the characters, if you will, statistical models. Well, that's not much different from us in the present. All we are is the statistical model of our history, along with some free will that we can interact. We've got some processing that we can make judgments and things, and we can make choices, and then we do this interaction with our free will. Other than that, the models in the future and in the past are us. They are us. They just aren't, they're either probable futures or they're historical past. So you can get into those things, and you can see them, and you can talk with those people, and you can interact. And it's very much like being there, and it's very subtle, that it's hard to tell that you're really just in a database unless you do some, like I said, unless you do some experiments there.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things, there's like a belief system. Well, I don't know if that's even the right word, but there's some idea that all things are happening at one time. So, for example, Tom, you're going to grad school, and you're talking to us now, and
I think Seth started that. Seth Speaks, Jane Roberts was the medium, and that was very, very popular. Most everybody interested in these sorts of things has run up against Seth, some of the books that Jane wrote, and Seth. Actually, I don't think Seth did say that. I think Jane interpreted that from what Seth said, and my opinion.
First time I heard it was
Neil Donawash.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, Seth preceded him, and that whole idea kind of got into the the 100th monkey thing, kind of got into the mindset, right? It kind of traveled around in mind space from person to person, but what I think Seth was trying to talk about were these databases. You have the future probable database, you have the present, and you have all the past, all the things that might happen and the probability they do, all the things that didn't happen, but the probability that they might have, and all the things that did happen. So you have all this data, and that's the future, the present, and the past, and they all exist at the same time, because the present is the only one with free will. The other two, the future and the past, are just databases. I think he was trying to explain how all of that, the past data, the future data, is all existent now. So you can, as a being now, visit any of that, future or past. I think he was trying to make that the explanation, and I think Jane misinterpreted it as everything happens at once. There is no time. It's all, all time simulated, because that just doesn't make any logical sense. It doesn't compute. You can't have everything happening at once. There's no time. You cannot learn. See, there is no such thing as learning if you don't have a before state and an after state, right?
Right.
You can't, nothing can change. Change requires a before and an after. You were like this, now you're like that. You changed. You didn't know this, now you know that. You learned. If you don't have sequential time, you cannot have change, or you can't have learning. Things have to happen sequentially. So you make a state like there is no time and everything happens at once, and then you have to back up and somehow invent time so that you can learn and change, because here it is. This is our mission, is to learn and grow, change ourselves, right? Become love. Well, that's impossible if there's no time. So time is more fundamental than space. Time is a fundamental technology of consciousness. It helped consciousness lower its entropy. Space is just a result of the rule set in this VR. It's just manufactured. Every VR has its own clock, has its own, it's a virtual reality, and has its own delta T in its simulation loop, its time loop. So there are different times, different places, and times aren't all smooth. You go into the dream reality, and sometimes time warps. You can do a whole week's worth of living there, and in 15 minutes here, or vice versa.
Yeah.
It doesn't match with the time here.
Right.
But
So,
that's what's going on. So no, it's not all simultaneous. It doesn't all happen at the same time. I think it was just a misunderstanding about these databases. People have experienced these databases from time immemorial. They call them the Akashic records in the Hindu theology. So they've known that there's a probable future in these past databases because people with their consciousness can go there and experience them. So that's been known for a long time, and that kind of makes people think that the future and the past all exist together at one time, but they don't understand that it's actually just databases on either side of the present.
yeah, if it did all exist at the same time, that there would be no free will.
Right. There'd be no free will. There'd be no change. There wouldn't be anything useful. So the whole thing would have no point, you see.
Right.
It would all be pointless. So that's really not the way it is. It just appeared that way, I think, to Jane when she tried to interpret it, or to Donald Walsh if he was, seeing the same thing. But lots of people have seen and been in these databases, and they tend to jump to the conclusion that these databases are acting out of free will. Well, here they are, just acting the same thing over and over again. That wouldn't be a good life, would it? You're stuck in this database, and every day you get up, and it's like Groundhog's Day, right?
Yeah, let me get off the cycle, please.
Yeah, yeah. See, that none of it makes sense. So, it's just history.
Right. The one thing looking in the past, there's certain key points in our past that everybody looks at, and it seems that every single person that looks at, I don't want to mention who the key figure is, but just think about somebody, key figure, and every time everybody looks at that key figure, they come back and they say something completely different. Not even like something different, like, oh, he had a blue cup instead of a red cup. It was just like completely different from what the person looks like. So I'm wondering, are they really going back to the past looking at this person, or are they going to their version of what they think would have happened?
Well, some of both. What the one thing is that you have this larger database in the past that is everything that could have happened but didn't, unless they know what they're doing and that they focus their intent just to get the history thread that happened. They could be wandering in the larger database of everything that could have happened but didn't, you see, and they wouldn't know. They could cross the history thread and then wander off of it because it's all just data. And if you don't have a very precise query with your intent, then you don't get very precise data back. It's like going up on the internet and saying, going to Google and typing in love, right, and hitting the button. You get 5 million replies back, and it's trying to find the one thing you were interested in is impossible because you get lots of stuff. Well, that's the way it is. If you have a very general content, I'd like to see such and such, in the past. Well, you get in there and you didn't say it'd be the high probability things or the past that was like this. You're just in a past database wandering around. So that's one thing. People don't know what they're doing. They don't understand how it works. So they get they get data that might have happened but maybe didn't, because they're in that they're in a different part of the database. Same within the future. They go to the future and they get stuff and it doesn't happen. Well, they weren't necessarily looking at the most likely thing, or the likely thing they looked at changed. One of those two things. The other thing is that when they get there, they get data and they have to interpret that data. If the data conflicts with their beliefs, then basically it just gets rejected. So if you go back there and you got this idea that that person is a real SOB and was always ranting and raving and wasn't a very nice person, and what you see is peace and light, you just reject it. Or vice versa. If you're looking for peace and light and you see something that isn't, you just reject it. So people filter what they get based upon their beliefs, because you won't accept something that's outside of your belief. So that personalizes what they get. Thirdly, the system doesn't record everything. Every detail is not recorded. The stuff that's recorded is the stuff that's more meaningful, the content that makes a difference. Whether or not the character was wearing a red hat or a blue hat may not even get recorded, because it's seen as irrelevant. It's not important. So you have a computer system that's storing data. You only store the data that you think is going to be valuable. You don't necessarily store everything just because it's there. That raises the amount of data you have to deal with. Remember, this is a finite system, with finite resources. So it has to be a little choosy about what it fills its memory with. So things like the red hat, blue hat, or okay, the guy scratched his head with his right hand instead of his left hand. None of that stuff is recorded, because it has no use. It's not relevant. Now, if you go, see, what we use this database for is that we use it several places. One, we get a lot of intuition, a lot of stuff out of it. We learn from it, right? But whether or not the guy's wearing a red hat or a blue hat isn't part of our learning, because that's an irrelevant fact. We use it when, after we pass and we die and we want to plan our next incarnation, we use that database as the learning tool. Somebody says, well, we think you need to learn some anger management. That seems to be a problem. Let's set you up in a situation that's going to cause a lot of anger, so you get a lot of opportunity to learn to manage it. And you say, anger management? Me? No, I don't have any anger management problem. It's just those people were such jerks, and then you go and you see it, and you go back in those databases and you look at it, and then suddenly you go, oh yeah, I see, I kind of lost it there. Yeah. And so it's used as a learning tool. And it gives substance a lot to inquiries. If people are going back and deciding on past events, like one time I did a thing that what if Hitler had won World War II? What would we be like? What would my life be like today in the United States in the year 2000 if that's what happened? What would the world be like? So you go and you play that probability. See, it's all part of the, all the possible things that could happen, right? So you just play through that probability, and then you move that up to the year 2000, and there you are. So it's got a lot of value as far as a learning tool, but whether or not he had gold buttons or silver buttons on his coat isn't important. So that sort of thing isn't necessarily there. But when somebody is checking us, when the skeptic says, well, did you really remote view that room? Tell me, what was the design in the carpet? You see, they're looking at the physical detail, but the system really doesn't give a hang about the physical detail. Right. They're more into the content. What was meaningful? What was significant? What is it that somebody could learn something from? That's what gets saved. So the guy does his remote viewing and he gets the details wrong. Well, then you weren't really there if you didn't notice that wall had a little, green spot on it. Well, that little green spot on the wall isn't important, you see. So they say, well, you must not really have been there. That's kind of a problem. That's why people don't have the same consistency when they're getting data outside of this VR, and people believe that the other VRs, that the other reality frames are just like this one. If there's a blue spot on the wall, then you ought to be able to see it, or you're not there. And it doesn't work like that. Now, if that blue spot's real important because you're doing some sort of a test, and I'm going to put a spot on the wall, it's either going to be red, yellow, or blue. Tell me which one. Now you're going and looking for the spot. Now the spot has become important to your ability to test the situation. Now you can probably see the spot, and it'll be there because suddenly that spot's a significant within the context of what's going on.
Right.
So you may be able to see that spot, but if somebody just, you can't guarantee that what you see is exactly what you get. People often will go out of body and they'll say, well, there I was in my house and I moved through my house, but I have this big vase of flowers and it's always sitting over here on the coffee table, but it was on the other side of the room. It was in the wrong spot. And the piano, instead of being where it was, it was someplace else. And they see little errors in the picture. That's because the database isn't accurate in all the details.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Or so I wanted to know, do you do any tour guides into these different realities?
I have done that. I have done that. The last time I did that, a friend of mine, Monroe, who was at MBT Events, www.mbt events, they do all of my, if I go out and doing lectures, and if any of your listeners want to know where I'm going to be talking next or what I might be doing, you can go to that place. And Donna asked me, she said, I've been trying to go out of body and I just can't seem to get it to work. Could you come help me? And I said, okay, I will come and I will just take you out of body and take you on a little tour. And what happens when you do that to people is that they tend to get just little flashes and bits and pieces of it that comes back with them and they remember, but it's not like getting on a bus and being given the tour in New York City. It doesn't work that way because they're not doing it of their own. They're not really, their mind isn't really there in that VR so much as I have pulled them there and they get some of it. So what she got was pieces of it. I took her to another virtual reality that was a physical reality, but not this physical reality, a different universe. And we had a little adventure there. And she was able to pick out maybe 40% of it, and it was correct. But most of it just kind of escaped her because if it's not your trip, it's just you're not really switched to that other data stream. I'm basically taking you there, immersing you in the other data stream, but the connection doesn't work very well. So I found it doesn't work that much. Now when I was in my 20s and doing this out of body thing, I would go going out to Monroe. I would come home and at night I'd be practicing and I'd go pick up my son. He was like 5 years old, 4, 5, 6, about that age. And I'd go out of body, go pick him up, and we'd go out and have an adventure. And I'd do some learning things with him. And he remember all of it in perfect detail. But that's because at that age, you are open to those sorts of things. You don't have this intellect that's always assessing and judging and
getting in the way.
Getting in the way. He was just open. So I'd take him on trips, and he'd come back, and I'd go out. I'd wake up before he did, and I'd go out and I'd tell my wife. I said, "Oh, I took my son out. I took Eric out, and we did this and this." But he got a little scared when we went into that. When we went through that whale, it frightened him. We were doing a thing on the oceans then, and he got a little disturbed, so I had to bring him back, And then an hour later, he wakes up and comes out and says, "Mom, guess what I did? I went through this whale," And then my wife's eyes would roll up in her head.
So does he still do out of body?
I don't know that he does out of body, but he still remembers the out of body that we did. He'll still remember bumping his head on that whalebone. He remembers the ones we did. Whether he does that now, I don't know. I'd probably say not. At about 7 years old, I stopped doing that because he stopped being so open, and that's about the age when they shift from having 1 foot in the larger reality and 1 foot in this reality. They shift to almost entirely 100% in this VR somewhere around 6, 7, 8 years old. Peer pressure and they get involved in things here.
Right.
Whereas before that they're kind of dreamy and life is magic anyway. So anything's possible and they're very open. So
then,
after a while, it's not natural anymore.
so then we go, 25, 30 years in the real world, quote unquote, before we start contemplating the higher things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Generally, we get so focused on the physical things. Although I've had a fair number of, I call them kids. I'm 66
Yeah.
years old, so anybody 40 and younger, is a kid. So I've had some kids though that were like 15, 16, 17, under 20,
Mm-hmm.
and they've read all the books and they're doing this stuff and they're real excited about it. And I thought, wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
Most kids in those teenage years are so focused on, what, the peer things at school and what fun they're going to have on Saturday night and that sort of thing, that, the bigger reality is just not on their radar screen. That's just not important yet. But I'm seeing a lot more of young people who are really not only into this, but have progressed quite far with it.
Yeah, my daughter's one of those. She's 28 now, but I quote unquote woke up about a year and a half ago, and all of a sudden Dad wasn't crazy anymore. That was the greatest feeling in the world when she came up to me and said, Dad, I know you're not crazy now. So Tom, we are nearing the top of the second hour here. This has been absolutely fantastic and gone by so fast. So any parting words you would like to leave our listeners with?
Well, yeah, I will leave. I suspect one thing is that all of this is kind of hard to get your mind around. I tell you, we're in a virtual reality. We're just like the World of Warcraft characters, except we have an evolved VR, virtual reality, rather than a program one. And a lot of people have difficulty with that, and they have difficulty with the paranormal things and the out-of-body and the different reality frames. Well, you can just let all of that go if you want to. It's not really that important. That's an intellectual understanding of the way the reality works. But that's not really what's primarily important. What's primarily important is that your mission here, what you're supposed to be doing with your life, is becoming love, letting go of fear. And if you work on that, getting rid of your fear and getting rid of that ego and becoming love, caring, compassionate and so on, then you're doing the right thing and you will grow. And these paranormal things and being able to move around a large reality, that'll all come out as a natural consequence of you developing the quality of your consciousness. So I'd say start there first. Don't chase the out of body. Chase the becoming love. Try to get rid of that fear and ego, and let the out of body come when it comes to you as you grow. So that's kind of one thing. A second thing is, like hardly any other speaker you'll ever hear, I will tell you, don't believe a word of what I say. And I say that because I don't want you to believe it. I don't want you to disbelieve it. Either believing or disbelieving is dysfunctional. What you need to do is find out for yourself, and it's not that hard to do. Anybody can learn to meditate. If you have trouble, go on the internet, Google binaural beat. Make some binaural beats for yourself that has a beat frequency of about 4 hertz, and that'll put you in a theta state. It'll help you meditate. So just go do it. Practice. The 2 easiest things that you can do for creating validation for yourself, creating things that you can check on to make sure that you're actually doing something and it's not just all in your imagination, is remote viewing and healing with your mind. Go to one of my YouTube sites and look up the Hawaii thing, and at the very end there's one called experiential exercises, and it'll teach you how to do that, teach you how to remote view and heal with your mind. And if you work at that for 6 months, you'll be able to tell whether you're having an effect or not, whether it's in your mind or whether you're actually doing something. But you can't just do it once, because you could try to heal somebody once and it would work, but maybe it would have worked anyway, even if you hadn't done anything. You see, you don't know. So you have to do it 100 times or 1,000 times. And then if you're 50-50, then you're not doing anything. You're, get as much wrong as you get right. If you're like 90%, then you're doing something, and there's your evidence. So those are my parting words. Don't believe it. Find out for yourself. Belief is the problem, not the solution. And don't worry about the out of body. Don't worry about getting paranormal things and seeing auras and stuff. Let that go until it just comes to you, because it will come to you if you work on getting rid of the fear and ego and becoming love. Those things are just natural for a consciousness. So
Well
that's
said.
it. That's kind of the summary.
Well said. Well said.
Very well said.
Well, if you want to run through your contact info again, your website, and where people can pick up the books.
Okay, I'm Tom Campbell, if you missed that. And the books are the trilogy of My Big Toe is the name of all of them. It's book 1, 2, and 3. Book 1 is Awakening. Book 2 is Discovery. Book 3 is Inner Workings. You can get those at my website, which is www.mybigtoe.com. You can find out if I'm going any place near you and giving a talk by going to www.mbtevents.com. And you can find the books at the usual places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and that sort of thing.
You're not coming
there's YouTube. There's YouTube videos that when I give a workshop, I actually you have to pay to go to those sometimes, and I put them up on YouTube for free just as soon as I can get the video edited. So you can go see a workshop and go look. There's probably 20, 30, 40 different videos that are up on YouTube. Go to TWCJR44. TWCJR44 on YouTube. If you want to read the books without paying for them, go to Google Books. They're free. All right. I think that's about all of it, gentlemen.
Great. Fantastic. And we'll try to get as many links as we can up on the page here for these things. So, Tom, it has been fantastic to have the opportunity to speak with you. And I'm sure our audience feels the same. Man, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're quite welcome.
You're not coming to Japan anytime soon, are you, by any chance?
Well, I was just in Japan last August, and I come there every once in a while because my son lives in Japan.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he's in there. No, this is his last year. He's in the JET program. He teaches English in the public schools. He works for the Japanese government. That was his way of that's his way of touring around in the East. So his holidays, he's off to Vietnam and China and Singapore and every place that he can get to. So
nice.
He's just spending 3 years in Japan, and he's on his last one. So he took us a tour around Japan. He lives out in the Noto area, the little peninsula on the west coast of Japan, and he's right up, not quite in the very tippy tip of it, but almost in that.
He's in a very cold region.
Yeah, it gets chilly up there. He gets lots of snow, but he's surrounded by ocean, and he's up in the mountains. It's real pretty there. It's very rural. This is not downtown Japan. This is outback Japan.
Yeah, he's on the west coast, which is completely different.
Yeah, he's on the west coast, up in that peninsula. So he loves it. He's just having a blast.
Okay.
So I do get to Japan, so
yeah.
I'll let you know.
There you go.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Where are you, in Tokyo?
Chiba, which is right next to Tokyo.
Okay.
It's like New York, New Jersey. That kind of
yeah. Well, that's where everybody starts and ends, right? That's where the airplanes go, international. So
yeah,
I've been there.
Okay, well, guys, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, and we love you all, and we will talk to you next week.